The alien medical ship floated in silent orbit above a half-burned world. Its walls were polished silver, humming softly with the energy of advanced technology. Inside one of the sterile white halls, Nurse Leora walked quickly, her long fingers clutching a glowing datapad. She was known for her calm nature, her skill, and her ability to handle even the most difficult patients. But today she felt an unusual pressure. A human had been brought in, and every alien in the facility seemed restless. Humans were strange to her kind. They were rare, unpredictable, and often misunderstood. The few reports she had read described them as reckless survivors, fragile on the outside yet impossible to break. Still, Leora expected nothing more than a wounded soldier, tired and broken from battle. She told herself this would be a routine medical exam. The doors slid open and she entered the chamber. The room smelled of sterilized air and soft chemicals. At the center lay the human, stretched across the medical table. His skin was bruised, but his eyes were wide open, watching everything. Leora felt a shiver. Most patients closed their eyes or asked questions. This one stayed silent, sharp, like a predator waiting. She greeted him in a calm voice, though her own heart beat faster than usual. "You are safe here. I will examine you." The human gave no answer, only a faint nod. His silence made her uneasy. The other alien assistants stood at the edges of the room, whispering to each other. They were afraid, though none admitted it out loud. Leora lifted the scanning device, a slim rod of blue light. She began with his chest. The scanner emitted a steady hum, passing over his heart. Instantly, the monitor above the bed flickered. Numbers spiked and dropped without pattern. The machine whined, as if struggling to read his body. Leora frowned and tried again, but the data made no sense. The human's heart beat strong, yet the readings showed surges of energy she had never seen. Her assistants gasped. "Is the machine broken?" one asked nervously. "No," Leora whispered. "It's not broken. It's resisting." She adjusted the scanner, moving it down toward his abdomen. The moment the light touched his skin, the entire room seemed to react. The lights overhead dimmed for a second. The table vibrated under the human's body. Leora quickly pulled the scanner back, startled. The human had not moved, but his body had responded as if fighting the machine itself. Her chest tightened. She had examined hundreds of patients, wounded soldiers, alien officers, even strange life forms from distant colonies. But never had she seen a body resist technology. She leaned closer, her eyes narrowing at the steady rise and fall of the human's chest. He was calm, almost too calm, as though he knew what was happening. "What are you hiding inside you?" she muttered under her breath. The human finally spoke, his voice low, deep, and controlled. "Your machines don't understand me." The words cut through the silence. The assistants froze, their faces pale. Leora felt her throat tighten. It was not just his body that unsettled her. It was the way he spoke. Not fearful, not in pain, just calm, confident, certain. She forced herself to continue. She had to. A nurse could not show weakness in front of patients. Holding the scanner firmly, she tried again, this time over his nervous system. The readings went wild, flashing red symbols across the monitor. One by one, the alarms rang out. The energy inside him spiked like a storm, as though electricity lived in his blood. "Enough!" one assistant cried out, rushing forward. "He is dangerous." But Leora raised her hand, stopping them. Her eyes never left the human. She could feel something powerful under the surface, not hostile but alive. More alive than anything she had ever witnessed. The air around him seemed heavier, warmer. Her chest filled with unease, yet curiosity burned stronger. The human shifted slightly on the table, his eyes still locked on hers. There was no fear in them, only a strange challenge, as though daring her to look deeper. Leora swallowed hard. She had started the exam expecting another broken body. Instead, she had uncovered a mystery that could not be explained by her books, her training, or her machines. The assistants whispered again, nervous and desperate to leave. Some spoke of calling the head physician, others suggested moving the human into isolation. But Leora ignored them. Something inside told her this was her test. This was not just about one patient. This was about understanding a species that had been underestimated for too long. She leaned closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. Your body reacts as if it is fighting me. But why? What are you protecting? The human smiled faintly, the first real expression he had shown. You'll find out, he said softly. If you're brave enough to keep looking. The words struck her harder than any alarm. Her heart raced, her hands trembled, but her resolve grew stronger. She could not stop now. Whatever this human carried inside him was bigger than a medical puzzle. It was a secret that might shake everything her people believed about his kind. As she reset the scanner, her eyes never left his. The chamber felt smaller, hotter, as if the walls themselves leaned in to watch. Suspense filled the air like heavy smoke. Each second dragged longer than the last. Leora inhaled slowly, steadying her hands. She was about to continue the exam, but a chilling thought stayed in her mind. What if the next scan revealed something the galaxy was not ready to see? And yet, deep down, she knew she would not stop. The room grew colder, though no system had changed its temperature. Nurse Leora could feel the tension pressing down on her shoulders as the human lay silently on the examination table. His eyes never left hers, and it unsettled her in ways she did not want to admit. She tried to remind herself that she was a professional, a trained medical officer who had treated countless soldiers and survivors from all across the galaxy. But this human was different. His body was not simply reacting, it was resisting. It was as though his very flesh was rejecting alien technology, and the thought filled her with both dread and curiosity. She steadied her hand and activated a deeper scan. The device in her grip hummed with a high-pitched vibration, sending a wave of blue light across the human's torso. At first the screen only showed chaos. Numbers climbing, symbols flashing, strange currents moving through his body. But then something far more unsettling happened. The machine itself began to overheat. Sparks crackled along its edges, and the soft hum turned into a sharp whine. Leora quickly pulled it back before it could explode in her hand, her eyes widening as she saw the metal casing glow faintly red. Never before had any living subject been able to disrupt alien medical equipment so completely. The assistants panicked, their voices rising in fear. One shouted that the human was dangerous and must be restrained. Another begged to summon the chief physician immediately. But Leora held up her hand to silence them. She refused to let her fear control her. She was a healer, not a coward, and she could not walk away from this mystery. The human's body was not attacking them. It was not uncontrolled chaos. It was reacting with precision, as though it had its own will. That realization made her shiver even more. She turned to face the man again. He had not moved from the table, but his breathing had grown slower, more deliberate, like someone in control of every heartbeat. When she looked at his eyes, she swore she saw something flicker there. An awareness, a quiet strength, maybe even amusement. It was almost as if he expected her to fail, and yet was curious to see how far she would go. Determined to press forward, Leora ordered the secondary scanners to be activated. These were much larger machines that slid out from the ceiling, surrounding the bed with a cage of glowing lines. They were designed to map every nerve, every muscle, every fragment of energy inside a body. As the scanners came alive, beams of green light passed over the human's frame. For a brief moment, the readings appeared normal, and Leora allowed herself to exhale. But then, as if waiting for the right moment, the man's body shifted in response. His muscles tightened against the beams, and the scanners began to flicker. The readings spiked wildly, filling the chamber with sharp beeping alarms. Energy surged through the machines as though they were being overloaded by his very presence. The assistants stumbled back, shielding their eyes from the sudden flashes. One of them screamed that the human was going to destroy the entire facility if they did not shut it down. But Leora stood her ground. She felt the vibrations shaking the floor under her boots, heard the metal frames groan, yet she refused to step back. Her gaze remained locked on the man, whose expression remained calm, even serene, in the middle of the chaos. Finally, with a sudden crackle, the scanners shut down, collapsing into silence. Smoke drifted from their sides, and the smell of burned circuitry filled the air. The assistants looked around in disbelief, muttering about impossible results and machines that should never fail. Leora felt her heart pound in her chest, but her voice stayed steady when she spoke. "This is no accident," she said quietly. "His body is doing this." Her words sent another wave of fear across the assistants, but she ignored them. She approached the bed again, her hands trembling only slightly. She knew she was close to something extraordinary. Humans were not like other species. Their bodies did not simply endure pain. They adapted, they pushed back, they grew stronger with every challenge. What she was witnessing now was proof of something far more dangerous and far more beautiful than her people had ever imagined. The human finally broke the silence, his deep voice filling the chamber. "Your machines are not ready for us," he said slowly. "You want to see inside, but you cannot force it. We are not built that way." The words sent chills through her body. It was not arrogance in his tone, but truth, heavy and undeniable. Leora could feel the weight of what he was saying, and she realized this was not just a medical puzzle. This was a revelation about his entire species. Humans were not fragile creatures to be studied and categorized. They were something beyond her people's understanding, something untamed and unbreakable. She stepped back, unsure of what to say, but the suspense in the room grew heavier with every heartbeat. The human had shown only a glimpse of his nature, and already it had nearly destroyed her machines. What more lay hidden inside him? What secrets of humanity had yet to be uncovered? Leora did not know the answers, but one thing was certain. She would not stop until she discovered the truth, no matter how dangerous it became. The examination chamber was quiet now, yet the silence was not peaceful. It was heavy, like the pause before a storm. Smoke still lingered in the air from the overloaded scanners, and the assistants stood frozen along the walls, whispering in fear but too afraid to leave without orders. Nurse Leora stood closest to the human, her chest rising and falling with unsteady breaths. Her hands shook faintly, not from weakness, but from the weight of what she had just witnessed. Machines designed to measure entire species had failed against one man lying calmly on a bed. His very existence had challenged everything she thought she understood about biology. She forced herself to study the remaining data. The monitors still carried fragments of readings collected before the shutdown. At first the numbers seemed meaningless, spikes, sudden drops, unreadable waves, but as she sifted through them, a pattern began to emerge. There was something alive in the data, something unlike anything she had seen before. His cells did not behave like normal cells. They did not simply absorb energy, they redirected it. They did not merely heal when damaged, they adapted, learning from the harm to resist it the next time. It was not defense alone, it was evolution happening in real time. Leora's eyes widened as she leaned closer to the glowing screen. The more she compared his biology to the alien medical database, the more impossible the truth became. Where other species showed limits, fixed points of strength and weakness, humans seemed to have none. Stress did not weaken them, it sharpened them. Pain did not break them, it pushed them further. Even the so-called inflammation that had first alarmed her was no disease at all. It was the body's natural surge, a wave of bioenergy triggered by foreign intrusion, meant to shield the human from threats and adapt faster than her machines could track. It was not sickness. It was survival perfected. Her assistants grew restless. "We should stop this," one hissed. "This creature is dangerous. No body should resist like this. What if he loses control?" Another suggested locking the human in containment before he destroyed more of their systems. But Leora shook her head. Her voice was firm, though her heart raced. "No, this is not danger. This is knowledge. We are witnessing something none of us have ever seen before." She turned her gaze back to the man, who still lay there calmly, as though the chaos around him meant nothing. At last, he spoke again, his tone quiet but carrying the weight of certainty. You begin to see now. We are not fragile. We are not what your people believed. When the galaxy pushes us, we push back harder. When it breaks us, we grow stronger in the broken places. That is who we are. The words struck her deeper than any alarm or flashing monitor. They were not the words of arrogance but of experience. She saw it in his eyes, eyes that held exhaustion yet still burned with endurance. It was as though every scar on his body was proof of his kind's truth. Humans did not need perfect machines to protect them. Their protection was built inside them, growing stronger with every battle, every hardship, every failure. Leora swallowed, struggling to put her discovery into words. Your biology, it is unlike anything we know. It fights, it learns, it adapts. Even our machines cannot keep up with it. Her voice trembled as she said it, not from fear, but from awe. No wonder your kind survived worlds that should have killed you. The assistants fell silent at her words. Some still looked afraid, unwilling to believe that a species so unrefined, so unpredictable, could hold such power within its blood. Yet others glanced at the human with something closer to respect, as if seeing him in a new light. The balance of the room had shifted, and Leora knew nothing would ever be the same again. She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper only he could hear. Why has no one told us? Why has the galaxy never learned what you are truly capable of? The faintest trace of a smile touched his lips. Because no one listens. They see only weakness. They see only what they want to see. Until the day comes when they cannot ignore us anymore. His words lingered in her mind like a seed planted in soil, waiting to grow. She realized then that this man was not just a patient. He was a doorway into a truth that could change everything. The old records had painted humans as reckless survivors, good at enduring but never masters of anything. Yet here before her was living proof that humans were far more than survivors. They were challengers of limits, defiers of rules, and maybe, just maybe, the species that could alter the future of every world in the galaxy. The silence stretched, but it was no longer empty. It carried weight, the weight of discovery, the weight of fear, and the weight of a future that none of them could predict. Leora stood straighter, her trembling finally still. For the first time in her career, she felt she was not just treating a patient. She was standing at the edge of a revelation that could reshape history itself. And though fear whispered at the back of her mind, a stronger voice rose above it. Curiosity. She would not stop now. She could not. The monitors were silent now, their screens still flickering from the overload. Yet the tension in the chamber had only grown thicker. Leora stood by the human's side, her mind full of unanswered questions. Her fingers itched to pick up another scanner, to dive deeper into the mystery, yet a part of her hesitated. She could feel something invisible between them, a weight in the air that was not born from machines or alarms but from the man himself. He had not moved more than a breath since she began, yet his presence filled the room as if he controlled it. Slowly, carefully, she reached for a smaller handheld probe. It was not meant for heavy scans but for reading surface energy flows across the skin. Perhaps with this she could study him without risking another failure. She pressed it gently against his arm, expecting only faint readings. But the moment it touched his skin, the probe flared with sudden light, far brighter than it ever had with any other patient. The screen spiked, not with chaos but with rhythm, a pulse that matched his heartbeat. Leora froze as she realized the machine was not measuring random energy. It was resonating with him, sinking to his body like an echo. And then she felt it, not through the machine but through her own hand. A warmth spread up her fingers, not burning but alive, like a current of energy had leapt from him into her. She gasped softly and almost pulled away, but curiosity held her in place. The warmth continued, flowing through her palm and into her arm, and with it came an emotion she could not explain. It was not fear. It was not pain. It was strength, steady and solid, as if his very body was offering her a glimpse of what it felt like to be human. Her eyes darted toward the human's face. He was watching her closely now, his calm mask breaking just enough to show awareness. He knew what she was feeling. He knew the connection was real. The assistants in the room stepped back, alarm spreading across their features. They whispered of danger, of infection, of strange alien energy leaping between species. Some demanded she stop, others urged her to break contact. But Leora could not. Something deep inside told her this was not a threat. This was communication. She steadied her breathing, keeping her hand against his skin. The energy pulsed again, and this time it was stronger. Her vision swam for a moment, and in that brief haze she thought she saw flashes of something not her own. Memories, emotions, fragments of survival and struggle. She saw battles fought on broken ground, humans standing against storms and fires, humans refusing to kneel when entire worlds crumbled around them. Each vision came and went in a blink, but together they told a story. Humanity was not just strong in body, but in spirit. Their will was a weapon sharper than any blade. The human finally spoke, his voice quiet but carrying through the silence. Now you understand. We are not just flesh. We are more than cells and numbers. We are what happens when pain does not end us but shapes us. His words left her breathless. She had always thought medicine could explain everything. Disease, recovery, limits of the body. But standing here, hand pressed to the arm of this strange man, she realized no machine could explain what she was feeling. Humanity could not be reduced to data. It was alive in a way that defied measure, and in that moment she was not just observing it. She was part of it. The assistants grew restless, their fear boiling into anger. One of them stepped forward, shouting that this was contamination, that the nurse was exposing herself to danger beyond repair. But Leora turned on them with sudden fire in her eyes. No, she snapped, her voice sharper than it had ever been. This is not contamination. This is revelation. You are blind because you see only fear. But what I feel, this is truth. Her words silenced them, though their faces still carried unease. The human's faint smile returned, though it was tinged with something softer now, respect. Most would turn away, he said quietly. But you didn't. Leora pulled her hand back slowly, the warmth fading but leaving a lasting impression on her skin and in her chest. She stood straighter, her breathing heavy yet steady. Her mind spun with what had just happened. The connection was not only physical. It had been something deeper, a bridge between species built in silence and touch. She had felt the resilience of humanity not as an idea, but as a living force. Her gaze lingered on him, and for the first time she no longer saw a patient lying broken on a table. She saw a living mystery, a being whose very existence defied her people's understanding of life. More than that, she saw possibility. A possibility that perhaps humanity carried within them something no alien race could ever replicate. A strength born not of perfection, but of struggle. The chamber seemed smaller now, the walls closer, as if the very facility was unprepared for the truth being revealed inside it. Leora took a slow step back, her heart still racing, her mind caught between fear and wonder. She did not know what the next scan would show, or what secrets still remained hidden inside him. But one thing she did know, she was no longer simply studying a patient. She was standing at the edge of something greater, a connection that had already begun to change her forever. The chamber was heavy with silence after Leora pulled her hand away. The faint glow of the monitors had faded into nothing, leaving only the dim hum of the ship's engines vibrating through the walls. Yet within her chest, the warmth she had felt from that human connection still lingered like an ember that refused to die. She looked down at him, the man lying on the table, and for the first time in her life she realized she was not staring at a patient to be healed. She was staring at a being who carried within him a truth larger than medicine, larger than science, larger than anything she had been trained to believe. Her assistants had gone pale, their fear rising into whispers. Some muttered that this human was dangerous, that he was unstable, a living threat to the facility and maybe even to their species. Others urged her to contain him, to sedate him, to keep him locked away until higher authorities could decide what to do. But Leora could not accept that. She had felt his strength not as a weapon, but as a force of survival, a raw, unbreakable essence that had reached into her very soul. She had seen flashes of what it meant to be human, and those visions haunted her more than the alarms ever could. She turned to the consoles again, her fingers moving quickly as she tried to recover what little data had not been erased in the overload. To her surprise, fragments of the last scan remained. As the images appeared on the screen, her eyes widened, and her breath caught in her throat. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen. They showed layers upon layers of energy that shifted and adapted in real time. They showed cellular structures rewriting themselves after damage, not only healing but preparing for worse. And deeper still, there was a surge of unknown frequency, something that pulsed not like blood, but like a second heart made of pure energy. "This is impossible," she whispered, her voice trembling. "This should not exist." The human's voice broke the silence, calm and steady. "Yet it does, and it always has. You just never looked closely enough." Her eyes locked on his. There was no pride there, no arrogance, only truth. The assistants stepped back further, their fear nearly spilling into panic. One of them shouted that such power should not be allowed to exist. Another said that if humanity carried this within them, they could never be trusted. But Leora did not hear their fear anymore. All she heard was the beating of her own heart and the steady, unshaken voice of the man before her. She took a slow step forward, her voice rising with conviction she did not know she had. "Do you not see? This is not a threat. This is evolution. This is what survival looks like. He is not here to destroy us. He is showing us what we could never imagine." Her words silenced the room, though their faces still carried disbelief. The human studied her carefully, his lips curling into the faintest smile, the kind that carried both gratitude and sadness. "Most of your kind will not listen," he said softly. "They will fear us. They will try to cage us, to dissect us, to strip us down into something they can measure. But what you felt, what you saw, that is the truth of my people. We endure. We adapt. We rise where others fall." Leora's chest tightened as the weight of his words sank in. She realized then that she had been chosen, not by design, but by fate, to witness this revelation. It was not her machines that uncovered the truth. It was her courage to touch, to listen, to feel. And now she carried a burden heavier than any she had known. She had to protect this truth even from her own kind. She lowered her gaze, her voice trembling with emotion. "You are not just a patient. You are proof. Proof that my people, that the galaxy itself has judged yours unfairly. If they knew what I know now, everything would change." The human closed his eyes briefly, as if acknowledging the weight she had taken upon herself. When he opened them again, his voice was softer, almost kind. "Then hold on to that truth, because the day will come when you will need it." The silence that followed was not filled with fear anymore but with awe. The assistants, though still shaken, dared not argue further. They could see in Leora's eyes that what had happened here was beyond protocol, beyond orders, beyond fear. It was history unfolding in front of them. Leora placed the damaged scanner back onto the table, her fingers lingering over it for a moment. Then she looked at the man once more, her voice quiet but filled with determination. "I will not let them treat you as an experiment. Not after this. You are more than they know, more than they deserve to know." The human gave no answer this time, only that same steady gaze that had carried him through pain, battle, and silence. It was a gaze that spoke louder than words, a gaze that promised humanity's truth would not remain hidden forever. And so the nurse stood in the dim chamber, her heart pounding with both fear and wonder, knowing that her life, her beliefs, and perhaps even the future of her species had been changed forever. For in the quiet presence of one human, she had discovered not just the limits of alien science, but the beginning of a story that the galaxy would one day be forced to hear.